Welcome to the introduction of a new series of talks. The way things truly are. You know, there was a time when being a good person wasn't just something we hoped for. It was understood as what it means to be human. People talked about character, about living with integrity, about becoming someone steady and real, reliable. Not perfect or polished, but true, down to earth, and open-hearted. These days, that kind of language seems almost forgotten. We're pulled in 100 directions, divided by politics, and drowned in so many opinions. Ours, others, the news. And yet we always seem to be performing, playing a role that we think we're supposed to be doing. Meanwhile, the world burns. Genocide is justified by delusions of superiority. Wars of invasions are waged with moral arrogance. And here at home, the vast majority are sold out to serve the richest few. And the worst part? It's not hidden. It's in plain view, championed by those in power and tolerated by the rest of us. But you know what? This is what spiritual blindness looks like. Mistaking this comfort for goodness, silence for virtue, and detachment for wisdom. We've turned away, called it not our business, and convinced ourselves that staying neutral is somehow enlightened. Or worse, convinced ourselves that we're powerless. But underneath all that noise, something quieter remains, something whole. We don't have to become good. We are good already. We know this instinctively. We feel it in our bones. But we've forgotten. We've covered it up. We've looked away. Perhaps it's been drowned out by all this noise. This forgetting hasn't just dulled our kindness. It's hollowed out our integrity. We've become performers of virtue rather than people of substance. Integrity isn't about moral purity or being right. It's the felt alignment between what we say and what we do, and who we truly are. It is what allows us as a person to be trusted, not just admired. Without it, everything collapses. Our relationships, our communities, even our capacity to see clearly. In a world overrun with projection, manipulation, and spin, integrity is not a quaint idea. It is a spiritual bedrock. A person of integrity is not swayed by audience, flattery, or fear. They do not become someone else in different rooms. They carry something whole, not because they are perfect, but because they are no longer divided by illusions of self and other, subject-object. They are, from a Buddhist perspective, they've understood emptiness. But this isn't about going backwards. It's remembering forward, returning to what life actually is, which is connected, sacred, alive. We remember that life is actually good, and this good life is deserved by all sentient beings. These talks are about that return, a way of living rooted not in fear or reaction, but in fierce gentleness, in the clarity and courage that we're never missing, just waiting. This series of talks are not here to teach you something that you don't already know. They're here to affirm what you've always sensed beneath the noise, something quietly alive, unmistakably real, and already within you. There's a way of being that requires no performance, no roles that you play, a way of living that doesn't depend on belief, achievement, or improvement, but emerges naturally when grasping, caring, and self-protecting fall away. In their absence, something is ancient, luminous, begins to reveal itself, a life of clarity, honesty, humility, and depth. not as a goal to strive for, but the natural radiance of freedom itself. And yet, as a culture, we've wandered far from this. We've been conditioned to believe that decency is naive, that compassion is weakness, that some people are simply superior. We're told that competition defines our nature. We've learned to mistake ambition for virtue and cleverness for wisdom. And somehow, collectively, we bow our heads and accept these absurdities. We've been turned against one another and taught not to live, but to survive, to win at all costs, no matter the damage, not to dwell in peace or awe, but to strive. But that's not the way things truly are. Even now, and especially now, something in us remembers. We remember that awakening, or being a fully integrated human being, is not beyond this life, but within it. That true wisdom is inseparable from kindness, that peace, when it's real, doesn't withdraw. It shows up. It listens with presence. It speaks with courage. It walks through the world unguarded, grounded in love. And when we meet someone like that, someone real, someone whole, we don't need to be convinced. We recognize them because something in us is already made of that same light. The path described in these talks are not new. They're not methods or philosophy. They're not a system to adapt or a practice to master. They're the living thread that runs through every tradition and through the heart of every human being. It is ancient, immediate, and alive. You don't have to reach for it. You only have to stop turning away. This is not a map. It is a mirror. These virtues, like humility, patience, courage, honesty, gentleness, and selflessness, are not spiritual accomplishments. They're not ideas to add to your identity. They're what becomes visible when self-centeredness dissolves. They are the natural expression of a life aligned with what is true. So no, these talks aren't about self-improvement. They're not a guide to become enlightened or climbing some inner ladder. They're about seeing through the illusions that you are anything other than already whole. They're about remembering what's been quietly here along when performing, pretending, and protecting fall away. Not some distant possibility, but the truth waiting beyond your resistance, immediate and undeniable. You are already awake. You're just in your own way. This path of practice can help reveal who you truly are, how things actually are. This may sound simple, but because it is. But that's its power. The truth has never needed to shout. The way has never required a spotlight. It only asks for your attention, for the courage to see through the illusion, and the willingness to walk beside others as they do the same. This path is an invitation, a quiet rebellion towards character, a return to what is most human, most whole, most real, not by effort, not by force, but by recognition. If something in these words rings true, it's not because these words are powerful or profound. It's because they point to something, to what is already alive in you. Fierce gentleness is what I'm calling this series. Maybe eventually it'll be a book. Seeing things how they truly are. Fierce gentleness is the heart of this path. It is the quiet strength to meet reality without flinching, and the unshakable softness that does not turn away. To be fiercely gentle is to stand in truth without armor, to see with clarity unmarred by judgment or fear. This is not the gentleness of passivity, nor the fierceness of domination. It is the living synthesis of presence and integrity, humility and unwavering love. The series of talks grow from that ground. What follows is not doctrine, but a shared inquiry. These principles are not prescriptions, but reflections, sharpened by life and softened by silence. They've emerged slowly over decades of practice and have been refined in conversations that I've had with students, friends, families, and strangers seeking for something real. Not lofty ideas, but a way of living that doesn't collapse under pressure. Each episode will speak to a quality of character, a way of being that can hold us steady in times of distortion and forgetting and fear. They're not commandments, they are invitations, each one pointing to the same route, to live awake, to love without defense, and to tell the truth without cruelty. To see the world as it truly is, unfiltered by preference, story, or name, is to return to the simplicity of what is before our mind moved, before conceptualization. Awakening is not an attainment. It is a collapse of reaching and resisting. It is a realization that there is nothing to grasp or reject because nothing has ever been separated. The conditioned mind divides and labels, not out of malice but out of fear. It tries to make the world safe by controlling it. But what we call awakening is simply the falling away of that need. And when it does, the world doesn't become magical because it already was. We just weren't available to it. The unconditioned mind doesn't oppose the conditioned mind. It sees through it, like light through a transparent veil. It doesn't deny pain or injustice. It doesn't create enemies out of them. It doesn't cling to good or bad. It responds with clarity, precision, and love. This is not a distant idea. It's here, now, closer than thought. And the only barrier is the belief that there is a barrier. Let's inquire just a little bit. A few questions. What in you is already awake to this? Can you find a place that is seeing now, without judgment, without effort, but just this? A couple of more questions that go throughout this. You can carry them with you. When you aren't living a story, defining yourself by your job, your role, your culture, your beliefs, who are you? As you encounter the world, between each perceptions of sight, sound, smell, taste, or thought, touch, what is always here underneath before you describe it? Let's talk about uncertainty. There's a lot on uncertainty. What if uncertainty isn't a problem to fix, but the doorway to true freedom? How does presence feel when you soften to not knowing rather than resisting it? On one side, there's the illusion of control, the self. On the other, the open vastness of no self. Over this summer, I will introduce 12 principles to guide your practice. Each episode will offer insight into one principle, how it works, how to live it, where we might stumble, and how this practice can deepen in your life. There will be reflections, challenges, and practices for body, speech, and mind. This isn't abstract, it's real. It can be physically and spiritually transformative. In short, this is a direct pointing to our own mind, our own cognition, and our body. How both can obscure reality or free us from the bondage of our own making. For insight, here are the first, let's say, 4 episodes. Begin in stillness, do no harm, speak with integrity, and walk with courage. But before we begin, a few words. This is not a preface. It is a coup d'etat, a quiet overthrow of hell. Not the hell of myth, but the hell we live in daily. The hell of delay, self-protection, of wanting the world to improve before we do. The world is not waiting. It is unraveling because we are. We live under the rule of greed, hatred, and delusion. We bow to comfort before conscience. We talk of compassion, but avoid the sharp work of our own personal character development. Even those who see the truth hesitate to live it. Even those who speak of interconnection, impermanence, and love still act as if their life is private. They know, but they do not become. This is not sustainable. This is not awakening. This is how the world ends in plain sight, while the awakened wait for a safer moment to arise. There is no safer moment. You were not born to survive this ship that we're on. You were born to abandon it. Step off. Let it sink. There is a new land, and it's already here. It is made of truth, of presence, of responsibility so radical that it no longer needs a self to carry it. These conversations are not a guide. They are a rupture, a stripping down to what has always been. You're not being called to feel better. You, this illusion of limited self, are being called to disappear into fierce gentleness, into wholeness, into what is real, into your unconditional being. These virtues we speak of here are not ideas. They're not behaviors to adopt or polish. They're the natural shape of a human who is no longer divided from reality. From the perspective of awakening, these traits are how reality lives through a human no longer claiming center stage. But even if you do not awaken, even if the self remains trembling on its tiny little throne, living in alignment with these truths will make you a more whole, a more honest, and more trustworthy human being. And if you take them all the way in, if you practice them with wisdom, without strategy, they may become the very ground that breaks the illusion entirely. Character is not separate from awakening. It is its echo, and sometimes its doorway. And one more final thing, especially with, well, you'll hear. I call this the age of excuses. This isn't just about your inner life. It's about our shared one. Because right now, we are watching the world unravel, not just politically or ecologically, but morally. We are witnessing in real time what happens when a culture forgets the value of character. We have entered what could be called the age of excuses, an age where integrity is seen as optional, where cruelty is rewarded with power, and where entire movements are not built on truth, but on grievance. We have made a religion out of self-interest and a virtue out of blame. And in the process, we have created a world where figures like Trump are not outliers, but they are the reflections. They're not our best, but our worst, of what we tolerate when we no longer believe in decency, of what we invite when we outsource our authority, abandon our responsibility, and choose comfort over conscience. Many have come to believe and have examples of be shameless, take what you want, blame the weak. That's what we're being told. These talks do not offer political solutions. They offer something deeper, a return to moral sanity. Authoritarianism becomes a regime, a way of interpreting the world because of a manifestation of failure of character. Society does not recover from that collapse by votes or by violence, but by the disappearance of the soil it grows in the first place, which is fear, laziness, conformity, moral confusion, and most all a lack of personal responsibility. We are not here by accident, and we will not leave this moment by accident either. If we are to create a future that is not haunted by the past, we will have to live in a new way, one rooted not in ideology or identity, but in honesty, courage, and kindness. This kind of steady, grounded character that does not wait for permission to do what is right. This is why the path matters now, not just in spiritual practice, but as a human necessity. Because when the world breaks, someone has to remember how to live and to put it back together. Thank you.